So far, we have assumed that only the starting time of the activities were variables. But in practice, the duration of the activities can also be a variable. So the question is, how do we adapt the filtering algorithm for this case where the duration of the activities are also variables? An easy way to deal with this is, instead of using the duration variable, you use the minimum of the domain of the duration variables, and all the filtering that we have seen remains valid. Okay? And also an interesting extension for the cumulative constraint is the fact that some activities may or may not execute on the resource. And so you have a Boolean activity, you have a Boolean variable, let's call it OI, that is a 0-1 variable to say if it is 1, I'm sure that the activity executes on the resource. If it's 0, it's not the case. And you also have to deal with the filtering of these variables as well. It's non-trivial to extend the filtering algorithm for these cases. And so I won't discuss this today. But you should know that it exists as well. Producer-consumer problems happens a lot in practice. And I will show you that we can also model these problems using the cumulative constraints that we have seen today. And it's not totally trivial. So what happens in a producer-consumer problem is that you start with an initial quantity Q0 available at time 0. And then a set of producers will produce this amount QPI at time TPI. P stands for producing elements. So you will produce this amount at this time. But this is fixed, but this is a variable, right? You don't know exactly when it will be produced. This is a decision variable that you need to take. And then a set of consumers may consume this quantity at this time. And the set of consumers may not be the same as the size of the set of producers, okay? And so you need to find a feasible schedule so that at any time, the quantity that remains is non-negative. So the way to view this is this one. So you have a big reservoir. You have a big reservoir like this, and you have the producers. Initially, you have this quantity, Q0. You have some producers that are adding in the reservoir, and you have the consumers that are taking out of the reservoirs. And at any time, the level here must be positive. So it must be non-negative. Okay? How do we model this problem? Well, this is a formulation that we can do. So at any point in time, the initial quantity plus the amount of produced material so far, which means that the time must be less than t is the current time, the amount of produced material so far, plus the amount of consumption so far is larger than 0, okay? I assume that the consumption here is a negative number, right? Oops, sorry, oh no, let's not assume this, so let's put a minus sign here, okay, it's a typo. A naive model for representing this is this one. So you will start with a variable st that represents the quantity available at time t. Okay, and so again, I will decompose at every time slot. So initially, I have Q0, and then for every time larger than 0, I do this. The amount that I have at time st plus 1 is the amount that I had just at the time before, plus the time plus the amount of produced material at time t minus the one that were consumed at time t as well. Okay, and I do this. And of course, st must be larger than 0 at any time, so non-negativity. But again, this is inefficient to decompose it this way because it needs to be proportional to the number of time slots, and I don't want to have that. A very elegant approach that was proposed by Simonis a few years ago is to model this with cumulative constraints. And this is the way you would model it. So you would introduce one activity per consumer and one activity per producer. And these activities will all start at time 0. The blue one, the producing activity, start at time 0. And the other one finish at time plus infinity, if you prefer, or plus h, which is the horizon of the schedule. Okay? And this is not decided when they will finish. Okay? The producing activity, this is a decision. So this, the duration of the activity is not decided. Okay? And the goal here is that we should not exceed the capacity C, and the capacity C, here, the capacity, is fixed to Q0, the initial quantity, plus the sum of everything that you will produce. Okay, so this is the capacity. So this is all that you will produce. Okay? And this is all what you will consume, and clearly you can already see that the amount of quantity that you will consume cannot exceed the initial quantity plus what you will produce. Okay? And so this is already valid. And so the producers are consuming this fictive capacity, but they will release the capacity when they will finish. So you see that they are using the capacity, and at the time at which you decide to produce, actually they release some capacity which makes it available like this. And so by using these modeling tricks, you have a cumulative problem for modeling a producer and consumer problem. This is a small exercise that you can try to do at home. This is a modeling exercise. So we have a team of 3 persons. Okay. Each team represents, so this team contains 5 persons, 10 persons, 3 persons. Every team can work at most 8 hours, and each team has a time window, which is the availability of the team. So let's assume that time window for the team 1 is A1, B1. And some jobs must be done. You need to do the job 1 with a duration of 3 hours, and it has a demand of 6 persons. This one has duration of 9 hours, and it demands 8 persons, right? And the goal is how to schedule the teams and the jobs to finish the jobs as soon as possible. Okay? How would you model this? Okay? Think about cumulative constraints. Introduce one activity for this one activity for this one. Okay? This is a kind of demand, and this is a kind of consumption, producer. So it's really a kind of producer and consumer problem. This will consume, this will produce some resource. So you may imagine that you would model this problem with negative consumption for the activities, especially these ones. Rectangle packing is another interesting application in which you can use cumulative constraints. So the rectangle packing is this problem. You have a bunch of squares or rectangles that you need to pack exactly inside a larger rectangle. Okay? How do you solve this problem? You need, of course, one decision variable here for each rectangle, and I will represent it like this. This is the bottom left corner of the rectangle. Okay? This is the coordinates x and y for this point. Okay, this is the xy coordinates of the rectangle. So I have one decision variable like that for every rectangle. And the only constraint that I need to enforce is the non-overlapping between the rectangles. It's the fact that you cannot do this, right? And to enforce that, you will use binary constraint like this one. You will say the rectangle I, this is the rectangle I, this is the rectangle J. The rectangle I can be on the left of the rectangle J, or the rectangle J must be to the left of the rectangle I, or the rectangle I is above the rectangle J, or the rectangle J is above the rectangle I. Okay? And so you can have these 4 possible cases, and at least one of them must be true. Okay, if one of them must be true, you know that there is no overlap between the 2 rectangles I and J, and you post this for every pair of rectangle IJ. But the filtering that you will get is very weak, again, if you use only this in your model. And I will speak about that again a little bit later when I will discuss about modeling in constraint programming. But you can improve strongly the pruning of this model by adding one constraint that will help the communication between the existing constraints. We call this a redundant constraint. Can you find some redundant constraints for the rectangle packing? And the idea is, yes, we can find some interesting redundant constraints based on the cumulative constraints. This is the idea. If you look only in that direction, what you get here is a resource profile with a capacity C, which is equal to the height of the rectangle. Okay, you've got a resource profile. You can have this view there, but you can also do this view in that direction. Okay, and you also have a cumulative constraint. And the idea is that you could post a cumulative constraint vertically and horizontally, like this one. It doesn't solve exactly the non-overlapping between the rectangles, but you will add additional pruning in your model because it will take into account all the variables at once instead of doing a pairwise reasoning between the rectangles. And so it's a good idea to add these redundant cumulative constraints, these two redundant cumulative constraints, if you are solving a rectangle packing problem. Finally, I would like to finish this lecture by mentioning that timetable, the filtering that we have seen based on the sweep-line algorithm, is not at all the unique filtering algorithm that you can find for cumulative constraints. But it's the most used one, and it's also very scalable. So it scales up to thousands of activities without any problem. But stronger filtering algorithm exists and might be worth to consider if you have less than a few hundred activities. And if you're interested to know more about this, you can read this very interesting slide that has been produced by Emmanuel Hebrard. You will find energetic reasoning, filtering algorithms, timetable edge finding algorithms, not first, not last reasoning, and so on. This finishes the topic of cumulative scaling in constraint programming.